Hello, and welcome back to Her Poison Pen. Today is the first of two full moons in the month of May. This is a lovely blue moon month. So we have all that intense energy of the full moon, and we get it twice. And then, of course, we get the calming energy of the new moon. Now, to kick us off on our Moony adventure here, we're going to be chatting with writer Anita Stewart. Anita is prolific, she's very wise, and she's been at this game for a long, long time. Anita is going to share with us today information about point of view. And she's going to tell us how you can write from the point of view through the female gaze. And she also actually writes from the point of view of the demon or the villain. So that will be interesting. In addition, she's going to help us understand more about female rage in modern writing. She has a unique perspective on this. Female rage is coming out more and more, not just in dark fiction under that horror umbrella or that dark fiction umbrella, but across the board in literature. We're seeing more and more of the female rage bubbling up. So we're going to learn more about that from Anita. Now, before we kick in, let me read you her bio. She's a pretty accomplished woman. She is a steadfast and proud sci-fi and fantasy geek. A.F. Stewart was born and raised in Nova Scotia, Canada, and she still calls Nova Scotia her home. She favors the dark and deadly when writing, and her genres of choice are fantasy and horror, but she has been known to venture into the light on occasion. As an indie author, she's published novels, novellas, and story collections with a few side trips into poetry. In addition to writing, she is the host of Shadows and Ink podcast, and she works as the media manager for Crystal Lake Publishing, and she hosts the show Trope or Not to Trope. I think that's really cute. For the Go Indie Now network, as well as their previous show, Words That Kill. We are in for a treat today in Her Poison Pen. So here we go, Anita Stewart. Anita, you and I have worked together on several projects now. She is what's your exact title?
I am the media manager for Crystal Lake Publishing.
Yes, media manager and a wizard at this media management stuff, which is, to me, it's kind of like this black hole, but you do a great job of getting everyone going and so forth. So I really appreciate it. Also, I appreciate your work and your thinking about writing and about the work of writers. So that's why I am so happy to have you on today on Her Poison Pen. So, Anita, can you just start out by telling our viewers a little bit about yourself and about the work that you're doing?
As you said, I'm Anita Stewart. I write under the name A.F. Stewart, partially because there was a cookbook author in Canada where I live with the name Anita Stewart, and I didn't want to be confused by her. And partially, and I think we're going to be discussing a little bit about this in the interview today, because I did not want to be dismissed as a woman writing in horror. So I went with the initials so I wouldn't be prejudged when I started out. And I've been doing this for a long time, since about 2007.
Wow.
Yeah, and I write horror, dark fantasy, steampunk, poetry, and I recently ventured into paranormal cozy mystery, which was a bit of a departure and a bit of a hard departure for me because I can't kill anybody in those little cozy mysteries.
Aw.
And that's kind of what I'm known for. I'm known for murdering my characters.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, yeah, you don't want to have a cookbook. Well, I don't know. I've read several horror books that deal with cooking lately.
Yeah,
And
I've written a few stories that deal with cooking, but cannibalistic cooking. So
yeah, yeah, and they're very entertaining. Very, very entertaining. So tell us about a recent piece that you've just completed or you're completing, something real recent.
Well, my most recent book is kind of a dark fantasy retelling of the Norse myths of Loki, where I've sort of made Loki the hero, and all these stories about him were just propaganda from the
Uh,
real villains. And that's a five short story collection that sort of interconnects and makes one narrative. So that's my most recent. I'm also working on a dark horror novel. It's sort of a psychological lighthouse ghost story.
mm,
Um, it's set in Nova Scotia, even though I don't really say where it's set. It is based on a lot of Nova Scotian folklore and the culture here. And so that one, I've almost finished the first draft on that. And I'm also working on finishing my last Hayward and Anderson story, which will wrap up the collection of short stories there. And then that will go into a print collection and a ebook collection where all the short stories are collected. So that's going to be coming out this year. So I'm looking forward to sort of wrapping that series up and moving on to doing some other things.
it's you are very, very busy, very busy.
Yeah, like I said, I don't recommend this to other authors, but this is how my process works. I need to work on multiple stories at the same time and get all the voices out of my head because they are very annoying.
Ah, that's great. There is a Pacific Northwest writer and poet named Priscilla Long, and her advice to writers is you have to work on four projects at a time. And if you're not working on at least four projects, you're going to be myopic. So you need to get, like just what you said, get those voices out. If this one's slowing down, jump over to that one, that sort of
Yeah, I'm out doing that by about quadruple. So
thing. Plus your work for Crystal Lake.
yeah, and my art too. So
Oh, that's a lot. What kind of art?
I do a lot of art. Most of it, like the watercolor and the oil painting, that's just my hobby. But the stuff I'm putting up on merch, it's all like vector art, like what you do in I use Affinity, Affinity suite of programs. And so I'm making like little things for merchandise and stuff like that. So
Interesting. Very nice. All right, well, let's just dive right in. I know that you've got a lot going on today and every day. But today, Anita, on her poison pen, we're looking at point of view. And because this channel focuses on dark fiction written by and for and about women, I focus a great deal on the female gaze. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about point of view in your own fiction.
yeah, I've actually started like when I first started out, it was a lot of my earlier books were from male point of view because that's kind of where it was when I started out.
Sure.
But as I started writing, it just sort of evolved into doing the female point of view. And I think the turning point was when I wrote the short story collection Visions and Nightmares, where all the stories in that collection, just excuse me for a minute, um, were from the female point of view.
Hmm.
And that was a collection of dark fantasy and horror stories. Um, like it started out, I was just collecting a few of my short stories I'd written, that a couple of them I'd put out to anthologies and they hadn't been accepted, things like this. Sometimes I just dump them into a collection, especially if were written for a specific anthology theme.
Hmm.
And so I noticed that like I had like four or five stories at that point, and I noticed they were like, they were all from women's point of views. And I thought, well, why not just make a whole anthology like that? So that's how Visions and Nightmares started. And then when I did the sequel to that, Fairy Tales and Nightmares, I went more into that because I wanted to do the fairy tales, like the Grimm's style fairy tales, but do it from the female point of view.
Mm, lovely.
Yeah, and then I added in sticking these fairy tales in different historical periods, like the Snow White tale I retold. It's set in feudal Japan, and that was the most interesting because that one didn't evolved way beyond what I originally started. I was just going to do uh, a straight up Snow White retelling from the point of view of the Wicked Queen.
Oh, yeah.
But as I wrote the story, the Wicked Queen's going, I'm falling in love with Snow White.
Nice.
So it turned
Lovely.
into this kind of obsession story about the Wicked Queen's obsession with Snow White and her feelings for her, or the Snow White character, because it's not Snow White in the story, because it's set in Japan, so they all have Japanese names. Anyway, so that was interesting. And her final decision about what happens with Snow White and her having to kill her. So, and the aftermath of what happens when that murder occurs. So that was the interesting one. And another interesting one in that particular story, the point of view, it's kind of like a dual point of view almost with the one I did on Red Riding Hood, which was something I had not anticipated because I do not like the original Red Riding Hood fairy tale.
Mhm.
Red Riding Hood's really dumb in that book, in that fairy tale, in my opinion. She's
Makes some
very
poor
dumb.
decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't even can't even tell her grandmother from a wolf. I mean, there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
So I am not a fan of that tale, but when I was doing research and I came across this thing about the Morrigan, who's one of my favorite Irish mythological characters, when one of her forms that is kind of obscure is actually a wolf. So I kind of
Ah, yeah. See.
yeah thought, well, what if we did it from her point of view as a wolf, helping the Red Riding Hood character? Do it all in Irish mythology, and it ended up having a sort of pagan versus Christian motif in it as well, which I really didn't plan on, but kind of came about it. But it's sort of like Red Riding Hood coming into her power as an apprentice of the Morrigan. So I thought
Wow.
that was fun.
Wow. I have not read that one and I want to read it. That sounds amazing. Really amazing.
Yeah, and the Little Mermaid retelling kind of turned into an anti-capitalist story too, which wasn't it's
Wow.
like these things kind of crept in, so you never know with the point of view. You sort of the characters sort of put their own spin on things.
Sure.
It's like because I
Sure.
wanted to show the difference between the mermaid culture and the human culture when I was writing that story, and why the the mermaid character couldn't understand why the humans put so much emphasis on little circles of metal,
Mhm.
the money. So that's kind of what came out of that.
Nice. Well, two things that you mentioned has got my little brain going now. I'm wanting to grab a pencil and do some stuff. And the first is that you use that powerful question that writers use is, well, what if? And I always have people say, where do you get your ideas? And I say, it's just the what if. What if the Little Mermaid was different? Or, what if Red Riding Hood was different or whatever. And then the second thing is that I'm fascinated with the idea of retelling old stories from the woman's point of view, from the female gaze. And what if we were to take my favorite book, Moby Dick, and write it from there is a book called Ahab's Wife, but it's not quite the same thing. But yeah, the retelling of tales from the female's perspective. In fact, that's what we're doing with horror a lot these days.
Yeah, that's also what I did with the Camelot Immortal series. It's King Arthur's legends, but the main characters are all the women of King Arthur.
Uh,
Nimwe's the main character, and there's her crew is Morgan Le Fay, Vivian, who's my version of the Lady of the Lake, and Isolde um, as well. And the only basically the only guy in the whole thing is Isolde's grandson, Martin, who's kind of like this new character I invented. And he's sort of the newbie of the group, and he's learning the ropes of magic and immortality. So.
Wow. What a nice way to approach point of view by switching it around. I want to ask you to go into some stuff about the female rage. But before we do that, let's stay with point of view, okay? A lot of authors struggle with a character. They'll write a scene or two and then they can't get into it and the character seems flat. And I think in one of our other discussions, you mentioned to me that sometimes you will just take that character and write it from a different point of view for a couple of scenes. And can you talk a little bit about that and what happens when you do that?
Okay, so I don't write it for a couple of scenes. If I'm switching point of view, I'm probably switching point of view for the whole story.
Mm,
Because
okay.
I've done that a couple of times. Like there was one story in Visions and Nightmares. It's the story with the jinn.
With the
And
what?
the wish the with the story with the wishing well.
Oh, okay.
I started that story from the point of view of the Marion character. I think it was Marion. I have so many characters that they meld after a while. And it just wasn't working because she wasn't very interesting.
Yeah.
So I switched the point of view to the creature in the wishing well
Okay.
and what her needs were and how she was manipulating the Marion character.
Okay.
And that made the story work so much better. And also sometimes it's just a matter of switching the point of view from third person to first person as
Okay.
well. Because sometimes like I wrote a story about the Wild Hunt. It was a short flash fiction piece, and I wrote it from third person point of view, and it just didn't work. So I switched it to first person point of view, and it became a better story. So that sometimes that's just what you need to do. I mean, yeah, you can try it. Like I know a lot of authors who do that, who just don't know if the point of view is working in third and they switch it to first and various things and try different points of view. And sometimes maybe the point of view you're doing, the character you're using just isn't the main character.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's what you really I find that more, not so much in novels, because if I'm starting a novel, I pretty much know who my main character is and what point of view he's going to be writing it. But with the short stories, sometimes I will do that. I will switch the point of views because short stories are a little more fluid, at least for me, than novels are. Because novels come to me sort of like the main character sort of in stone. Sometimes I will switch out things with the secondary characters, but the main character usually is in stone when I start a novel.
Okay. So a couple questions about that. What you said brought these questions up for me. If you're writing a novel and you have, let's say you have three major characters, you know, your protagonist, antagonist, a helper. If you, first of all, how do you feel about having two characters in the third person and one character in first person? Can you do that in a novel? Can you mix the points of views?
Actually, you can because I'm writing that at the
Oh,
moment.
okay. Good.
I I'm doing that. It's like you have like you switch chapters for points of view when you do something like that.
Of course.
Yeah, and so the two human characters are in third person. The demon character is in first person
Oh,
because I wanted a far more intimate point of view from him, and because he needed to have this like sort of dark temptation manipulation
mhm.
aspect to him, and that worked far better in first person than it does in third person.
Okay. Now, another question related to that, if you have your demon in first person, is then is your demon, he, I guess it's a he, right? Is
Yeah.
your demon, is it his story then? I mean, if you have one character doing first person, does that make that character's story?
No, it's not his story. He's a part of the the main character is really is so the main character is really the woman because it's her choices and her decisions that are ultimately going to shape the book. But he's a very large part of her story.
Mhm.
And I needed to have him in first person because there are three characters, two of them are lying and one of them's telling the truth.
Okay.
And I needed to have him in first person. So he's sort of switching with her point of view, but we're getting a deeper sort of a look into his perspective. Because she's like saying he's doing this, like she's fighting against the demon in her point of view.
Hmm.
And the other character sort of being manipulated by the demon and doesn't know what's going on exactly. So he's struggling with something unknown, which is why I wanted to detach it a little into third person, because his character is going to evolve into something else. But the demon had to be in first person because you needed to know his point of view to juxtapose against the other two points of view and give it that intimacy. Like, this is me. You don't understand me. I'm telling you what my feelings are.
Okay. Okay. So, a novel that I'm working on right now, I have two women, and one of them is it's her story, but the other woman is, I'm going to put quotes around the word villain. Okay. So, so person one, it is her story. She's the one that's going to have the arc. She's the one that has the most to lose, takes up most of the ink in the book, that sort of thing. But I was thinking of having that other, the villain, in first person. Um, and the reason I wanted to do that is just because I think she has a very snarky, sort of fun voice, and I wanted to bring that up. But my fear was, and I think you just believe that, my fear was that she would take over. It would become her story because she's first person. But you're saying it wouldn't be necessary.
No, because I mean, like with the demon character, like m most people, when you think of demon, you think of villains. I put him in first person to deliberately give him sympathy, to
Okay.
give him some depth and some like I'm not the villain here.
Uh-huh.
Because he doesn't consider himself a villain. He's just a demon. He's doing what demons do, right?
Oh,
So he considers him not a villain. That's kind of why I put him in first person. So it's like, so you can see his point of view. So you don't automatically see him as a villain and you're wondering what is going on here.
yeah. Yeah. Good. I'm guessing that by doing that as well, you can give backstory. You can weave backstory
Hmm.
in without having to put it in dialogue and all that sort of thing. You can be walking around or doing whatever villains or demons do, and thinking about, yeah, when I was a little tyke, this happened or whatever.
Yeah. And he's giving context to her backstory too, because she's telling her backstory in one way, and he's telling her backstory the way he was connected to it in another way. So you're
Okay.
getting contradictions of backstory here too until you get to the last chapter and you find out the truth.
The truth. That's
Yeah.
good. Oh, I can't wait. What's the title of this?
Shadows of the Dead is the working title on this particular one.
It's a novel.
Yeah. Well, it's a no maybe a novella. I haven't decided yet. It depends on how much I flesh it out as I'm editing it. Yeah,
Right.
I'm actually going to be doing this as a serial fiction over on Later Press. To begin with, and then it will go into wide release after I'm done there. So this
Okay.
is kind of my test book for later press and getting into serial fiction.
Okay. Cool. Very exciting. Yeah, sounds like a great story. And thanks for talking about that, about point of view. Now I'd like to get into the part about female rage. And again, in an earlier discussion that you and I have had, you mentioned that more and more work, you're seeing more and more work that shows female rage. And I was thinking about that after we talked, and I'm seeing that a lot too. Could you go into that, talk about female rage, where it comes from, how it's being expressed in literature, and what do you think's happening with that? It's just exploding right now.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is a reaction against current political stuff and the Me Too movement and things that have been coming out recently about, you know, certain authors that have become that were supposedly certain authors and creators that were supposedly supporters of feminism, but turned out to be not so nice people.
Mhm.
And it's just like women are kind of getting, okay, we've had enough. I mean, you saw it in the reaction to that, women would choose the bear discussion online.
Yes, wasn't that amazing?
and how men were saying, what the, yeah, we don't understand this. And women going, yes, because you're not a woman.
Mhm. And the answers were immediate. People
Yeah.
would say bear or guy, and women would say bear. I mean, they didn't even think about it. It was just there.
Yeah, it's because, I mean, it's not like we go out and choose, like go out and seek the bear,
Mhm.
but it's like we know how the bear will react better than we know how a man will react. And that's basically what it comes down to. It's like, you know how a bear is going to react, right?
Right. You
It's
know
either
his
going to
motive.
attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's either going to attack or it's going to leave you alone.
Mhm.
You're right. You got two choices. With a guy, you don't know. You don't know whether he's a bad guy, a good guy, or an in-between guy.
Right.
It's like you don't that's what men don't really get is that women have an innate distrust of all male people because we have to. It's a matter of survival in a lot of cases.
Mhm.
It's like it's not like we want to distrust men, but we have to, especially strange men, on meeting someone we don't know. I mean, even men we do know, it turns out that a lot of women can't trust them because they
Exactly.
turn out because they're two-faced.
Mhm.
And then the one thing I think that one thing that's really driving it too is this not all men mantra that the guys have established in response to these women coming out and telling them their stories and saying that they choose the bear and things like that. And it's like, yes, it is all men. Not all men are doing these bad things. Not all men want to do these bad things or think these bad things, but all men are letting these bad things happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're not doing anything to stop it.
Mhm.
And that's what guys are need to understand. You are the ones that need to change it. You have to start teaching your sons to respect women, not control them,
Mhm.
and things like that. And this is where the female rage is coming from because we are just so tired. And all these toxic bros and these alpha bros that are online feeding the rage. They are feeding the female rage and they don't even understand they're feeding the female rage.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's like learn what the word respect means.
So in dark fiction or in horror, well, horror is part of the whole dark fiction. This rage seems to be more and more intense. Do you think that when we read as readers of this dark fiction featuring female rage and also as writers, is there a catharsis? Is it helping us? Is it stirring up greater rage? What do you think it does for both the writer and the reader?
I think it's more of a catharsis than anything. It's like, because it comes out, because I noticed this when I was writing fairy tales and nightmares. The rage was coming out in the story, whether I wanted it to or not, especially in the Red Riding Hood story. There's a lot of rage there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that, and it's like, sometimes I look at it and I go, is that too much rage? Should I be cutting it back a little bit? And I'm going, no, I'm going to leave it in and see what happens. And it's like, and sometimes I wonder if maybe I'm being a little too mean to the male characters in some of my stories. But then again, I hear all these real life things and then think, no, no, I'm not being too mean.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like,
that whole thing about, oh, go ahead.
I was
Sorry.
gonna say, and the thing is that when men treat women in their stories like passive, small creatures, nobody questioned whether they were mistreating their female characters until recently. I
Mhm.
mean, it was accepted. So, and when you have guys abusing women in stories, it's not treated like male rage, you know?
Mhm.
It's like we're just doing what you guys have been doing for ages, only to the we've turned it around and now you're uncomfortable with it.
Right. And I think I was just going to say when you said, "Oh, maybe I'm being too mean or something." That's in the past. That's what we've been taught to do. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say anything, boys will be boys, or maybe I'm hurting his feelings or whatever. And that's something that we as creators, as and just as women in general, I think we have to get over that. We have to, like just what you said. They don't think that. They don't go, geez, I wonder if I'm being too tough on the gals. I don't think they ever ask that.
Yeah.
So
They write some weird things that make no sense in the context of being a woman either. It's like I was doing an interview with another female author, and she was telling a story about how she wrote a scene about a woman checking the back seat of her car before getting into it,
sure.
which is a familiar scenario to any woman.
Mhm.
Then she took it to a critique group of guys, the rest of the group of guys, and they said it wasn't believable.
Really? Who
Really.
doesn't check their back seats? Who
Apparently,
doesn't walk
guys,
with their keys stuck in their,
fingers,
knuckles? Yeah.
yeah, to poke guys in someone's eye. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
so it's like, and that was my reaction when she was telling that story. It's like, yeah, it's believable to a woman.
sure. Sure. And it reminds me of I think I'm pretty sure it's Margaret Atwood's quote about that men are afraid that women will make fun of them. Women are afraid that men will kill them.
Yeah.
So our level of fear, our level of, which would fit into our rage. We're just, I like what you said. We're just sick and tired of it. We're
Mm.
just tired of being afraid all the time and having to placate people in our writing, not just in real life, but in our writing as well. So as creators, we have to add another layer to that. Cool. That's some good stuff there. What question? I always like to ask the writers who come on the channel, what advice or encouragement would you offer to writers, both established writers and also beginning writers who write dark fiction by and for and about women?
Well, first of all, talk to a woman if you're not a woman.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are a woman, you don't have to worry about it because you know the experience. But if you are a guy writing, oh, from a woman's point of view, make sure you talk to a woman, your wife, your sister, your mother, whatever. Doesn't matter. Just talk to one. They'll tell you exactly how, because I mean, emotionally, men and women are the same. We have the same emotions. Behaviorally is where we are different. A
Mhm.
woman will react in a situation different than a man will react in a situation. And you have to understand how a woman will react.
Mhm.
And we also have different things. Like I find things that men get, it's like you hear the romance writers laughing about men's descriptions of women, coming down the stairs, how their anatomy bounces.
Yeah. Yeah. Or jiggles. Yeah.
Yeah, which unless they are not wearing a bra, doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And
what
even
are
then it would not be the way they describe it. So, observe how women move is another thing if you're describing a woman. But mostly, I think you don't be afraid of your voice and don't be afraid of being extreme. Because especially in the first draft, write exactly what you want to write in the first draft.
okay.
Because if you decide, well, that's gone too far, I don't like it, you can always tone it back in revisions.
Mhm.
But write it all out in the first draft, all your extremes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we had Elizabeth Engstrom on a couple moons ago, and she said, be fearless. And I think
Yeah,
that's what you're saying. Be fearless. Yeah. Don't be afraid of your extremes. Right. This
because the
is,
extremes are fun.
oh, the extremes are fun. Yeah. The extremes are fun. I am really enjoying writing about a serial killer, a woman who's a serial killer. And she's just so fun, and it is fun. And sometimes I think, ooh, that's pretty gross. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty gross. Big deal. So, what else would you like to share with our writers, with our creators?
Well, I'd say, write more women protagonists because we need more women protagonists. We need more role models. Is that was a funny thing is that when I was earlier in my career, people were asking me why I enjoyed writing villains so much. And I really didn't have an answer. I gave a little generic sort of an answer. But I was thinking about it afterwards, and I think I enjoy writing villains so much because when I was growing up as a kid, I was into animation, or I watched a lot of Disney cartoons and things, and I
Yeah.
realized the villains were better role models for female characters than
Interesting.
the heroes. Because Sleeping Beauty is my usual example. It's like I am in love with Maleficent's character in that Disney animation. I mean, she's an amazing character. She's powerful. She doesn't take um guff from anybody. She turns into a freaking dragon. I mean, and if you compare her to Aurora, I mean, nothing against the Aurora character, but she's very passive and sweet, and she really doesn't have any power in that story.
Yes.
Maleficent has all the power until the guy kills her,
Hmm.
right? So, and I've been looking at it, and it's the same way. Like Little Mermaid, Ariel's very passive. I mean, she does have a little more power in that story, but Ursula's the one with the power, with the whole agency, really.
Sure.
And it's like if you look at all the Disney female villains compared to the Disney female princesses, the villains are way more empowered than the princesses.
Hmm.
And I think that's where my love of villains started because they were kind of my role models in a weird sort of a way.
No, I love that. And I'm kind of rolling through all of the villains, and they are,
Mm,
they do bad things, but
yeah.
they have
I mean, and
agency.
even the feminist icon Xena, she started out as a villain.
Uh,
Her whole show was basically a redemption arc for a villain.
yeah, that's cool. That's great. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, my person was Baba Yaga as I
Mm.
was growing up. I loved Baba Yaga, and as a weird little child, I would walk around by myself talking to Baba Yaga, She
Yeah,
seemed like a very
she was one of the stories I did in Fairy Tales and Nightmares, but I actually made her a hero instead of the villain in that particular
in
story.
my little girl mind, she was very much a hero,
Mm.
I mean, so what? She
Yeah,
did
it's
stuff.
sort of like the Baba Yaga origin story was what I wrote, so it was fun.
Lovely. Lovely. Well, Anita, I really appreciate you coming here today, sharing your time. You are a very busy woman, but I love your insights, and I'm looking forward to reading some of these stories that you've outlined for us. They're very exciting. Very
Okay, yeah,
exciting.
thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being here.
Yeah. All righty. Wow, that was a lot of fun. I learned a great deal from Anita about point of view, and I'm going to use some of her tricks in the novel that I'm currently working on and just see maybe I'll give that villain a first person point of view. Maybe I'll slip in a demon or two. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. And what do we do now? We go out there and we put words on paper and we stay witchy.